Harlem, June 10th, 1963. The city is alive, pulsing with energy, its streets a tapestry of flashing neon signs, honking cars, and the rhythmic chatter of men and women hustling to make their nights count. But just a few steps off the avenue, behind the heavy glass doors of Small's Paradise, another world exists. One of velvet lighting, thick cigar smoke, clinking glasses, and whispered secrets. Small's Paradise, the crown jewel of Harlem nightlife. Tonight, like every Friday night, the restaurant is packed. Waiters glide between tables, carrying plates of glazed ribs, bowls of collard greens, baskets of cornbread, and glasses of bourbon and whiskey that catch the light as they move. The jazz trio in the corner, saxophone, upright bass, and piano, warms up, filling the room with a sultry melody. A soundtrack to the tension that no one yet fully understands. But tonight, all eyes, all attention, all silent anticipation is focused on one table. Table 7. A table that has become more than a seat. It has become a stage, a battleground where loyalty will be tested, betrayal confronted, and revenge served. Because 3 days ago, Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson walked out of Alcatraz, 56 years old, gray in his hair but his eyes. His eyes were the same as ever. Cold, calculating, dangerous. And while Bumpy was locked away, another man, Marcus Smooth Henderson, once a protege, once a trusted ally, had built an empire in his absence. Smooth had claimed territory, wealth, and respect that were never truly his. He had slept comfortably while Bumpy counted the days behind bars, while Harlem forgot the rules, and while loyalty was sold for gold. Tonight, it all changes. Tonight, the past and present collide at Table 7. Every plate, every note of jazz, every whisper in the room becomes part of a story that will be remembered long after the night ends. Because betrayal, no matter how well hidden, cannot escape the gaze of a man like Bumpy Johnson. And tonight, Bumpy is back. So, lean in, listen closely, watch the room. The players are in position, the stakes are high, and history is about to be written. In the glow of Small's Paradise. To understand what's about to unfold at Table 7, you need to understand the man at its center, Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson. Harlem knew him as more than just a gangster. He was a protector, a strategist, a man whose word carried weight and whose presence commanded respect. He didn't just run numbers. He ran the neighborhood's heartbeat. When trouble came knocking, Bumpy was there, not for profit, but to protect the people who trusted him. Loyalty, once earned, was never questioned. And when he spoke, the streets listened. Bumpy didn't rise overnight. He learned the streets from the ground up, turning a small numbers game into a sprawling network of policy banks, safe houses, and alliances that even the Italian families respected. He was methodical, intelligent, and always 10 steps ahead. Harlem wasn't just his territory, it was his empire, built on respect, cunning, and the kind of calculated power that leaves a mark long after the man himself is gone. Among the many who looked up to him was one young man from 118th Street, Marcus Smooth Henderson. Groomed personally by Bumpy starting in 1947, Smooth was sharp, ambitious, and trusted implicitly. Bumpy showed him the ropes, taught him the numbers game, introduced him to the right people, and protected him from the remnants of old mobs seeking revenge. Smooth was supposed to carry the torch in Bumpy's absence, to hold the neighborhood together while his mentor served time. But ambition, when unchecked, breeds betrayal. While Bumpy was locked away in Alcatraz, Smooth quietly made deals behind his back. Deals with the Genovese crime family, deals that sold out the very foundation Bumpy had built. Policy banks were exposed, Cops on Bumpy's payroll were compromised, cash houses revealed. And the streets? The streets were carved up and handed over as if Bumpy had never existed. Smooth enriched himself while the man who made him sat behind steel bars, unaware that his empire was slipping through his fingers. In those years behind bars, Bumpy had nothing but time. Time to think, to reflect, to remember every betrayal, every lesson, every loyalty broken and kept. And he planned. Oh, how he planned. Every name, every address, every pattern. Bumpy cataloged it all in his mind. The streets could have forgotten him. The traitors could have grown bold. But Bumpy's return was inevitable. When he walked free, justice wouldn't be blind. It would be precise, deliberate, and unforgettable. And so, as the lights of Small's paradise flickered and the jazz brushed the edges of the room, the ghosts of past loyalties and betrayals whispered through the crowd. Table 7 waited. History waited. And Bumpy Johnson, older, sharper, and colder than ever, was about to remind Harlem why his name alone meant power, fear, and respect. 3 days ago, Bumpy Johnson walked out of Alcatraz. 56 years old, hair streaked with gray, but those eyes hadn't aged a day. Cold, calculating, the kind of eyes that make even the boldest men reconsider their choices. No fanfare, no press, just the echo of steel doors closing behind him and a mind already plotting the return. Bumpy didn't go home. He didn't embrace his wife. He didn't pause to rest from the 3-day train ride from San Francisco. The streets of Harlem had been waiting, yes. But first, he had business to attend to. He went straight to the apartment of Junie Bird, one of his oldest allies, the kind of man who had never wavered, never betrayed, even as the neighborhood shifted in Bumpy's absence. 63 now? Bumpy muttered, scanning the room. Gray-haired, but loyal to his last breath. He didn't sit. He didn't need to. Loyalty and fear demanded immediacy, and time, he knew, was precious. "Give me names," he said, voice low, deadly calm. Junie Bird nodded. He had been watching, listening, keeping tabs for 11 long years. 15 names rattled off. Men who had gotten rich, who had carved up Bumpy's empire, men who had forgotten the rules. But there was one name that made Bumpy's jaw tighten. A name that turned his controlled calm into a blade-sharp focus. Marcus Henderson. Marcus Smooth. Once a protege, once a son of the streets in Bumpy's eyes. A man Bumpy had trusted with his operations, his territory, his legacy. And in his absence, Smooth had sold out everything for profit. Bumpy sat back, absorbing the weight of betrayal. He didn't rage. He didn't yell. He didn't make a scene. Instead, he planned. Every move, every step, every angle was calculated. The man who had betrayed him had routines, habits, a sense of comfort in his ill-gotten control. Bumpy intended to use it all against him. The plan was meticulous. Junie Bird would gather the loyal crew. Willie Fish Jackson, Quick Lewis, and a handful of men who remembered Harlem as it was when Bumpy ran it. They would track Smooth's patterns, observe his favorite haunts, wait for the perfect night to strike. Not with chaos, but with precision. Every detail mattered. The timing of his arrival, the placement of witnesses, the exact seating arrangement. History, Bumpy knew, would remember this night. Not for bullets, not for violence, but for the quiet, undeniable reclamation of power. And so, with the names of the betrayers etched into his mind, and Harlem streets whispering secrets he already knew, Bumpy Johnson prepared to return, not just as a man, but as a force. A king reclaiming his throne. The city hadn't seen the last of him yet. Not by a long shot. It was Friday evening. The clock edged toward 8:50 p.m., and Small's paradise was beginning to hum with its usual weekend energy. Hustlers, musicians, working men and women spilling their paychecks on good food and cold beer. The jazz trio was warming up in the corner, the saxophone's low wail brushing against the scent of ribs and bourbon. But beneath the music, beneath the chatter, the air was thick with anticipation. And then he appeared, Bumpy Johnson. Charcoal gray suit, well-worn shoes, the train's dust still clinging to his clothes. No weapon visible, just a presence that made heads turn, conversations falter, and whispers ripple through the crowd. That's Bumpy Johnson. I thought he was dead. 3 days out of Alcatraz, and the ghosts of Harlem seemed to rise with him. He moved with purpose, weaving through the tables, his back to the wall, eyes scanning, calculating. At table 8, Junie Bird sat with Willie Fish Jackson and Quick Lewis, Bumpy's most loyal men, each aware of their roles, each ready. Old habits died hard, always back to the wall, always facing the entrance, always aware. Every detail mattered. Bumpy took his seat, calm as the still waters of the Hudson, his eyes narrowing as the clock ticked closer to 99 p.m. The time Marcus Henderson, smooth, would arrive. The man who had betrayed him, who had taken wealth, territory, and respect, who had thought Bumpy forgotten, was about to find out how wrong he was. And then the door opened. Smooth entered. 38 years old now, dressed in a cream-colored suit, burgundy tie, gold rings glinting in the dim light, a Cadillac of confidence trailing behind him in the form of 4 massive bodyguards. He laughed, joked, acted as if the world belonged to him. And in a way, in the absence of Bumpy, it had. But the moment his eyes landed on Bumpy Johnson, something changed. The laughter died mid-step. Confidence wavered. The color drained from his face as every instinct told him the game was over. His bodyguards noticed the shift, hands twitching toward their weapons. But Bumpy? Bumpy didn't flinch, didn't move, didn't speak. He just stared, cold, unwavering, the calm before a storm no one in Harlem would forget. Smooth's empire, built on betrayal and comfort, had led him right into the lion's den. And Bumpy Johnson was ready. Every detail observed, every loyalist positioned, every moment timed perfectly. The stage was set. Table 7, where history would be written, waited. The room had shifted. Conversations faltered, laughter died in throats, and the jazz trio's soft notes seemed to hang in the air like mist. Every patron in Small's paradise felt it. An invisible weight pressing down, an unspoken warning that something monumental was about to unfold. Eyes turned, heads tilted. 250 witnesses frozen in anticipation, unknowingly about to witness history. Bumpy Johnson didn't move. He sat calmly at table 8, back to the wall, hands resting on the table, eyes locked on the entrance. Time seemed to slow as Marcus Smooth Henderson's 4 bodyguards scanned the room, tension written in every stiffened muscle, every twitching hand inching toward their weapons. Smooth himself stood frozen, the cream suit of confidence suddenly heavy, as if the air itself reminded him of the man sitting mere feet away. And then, without a word, Bumpy spoke. "Marcus, come sit with me." Not a request, not a plea, a command, a declaration. The simplicity of the words carried the weight of 11 years of betrayal, of stolen wealth, of lost loyalty. Smooth's jaw tightened, his hands trembling, but instinct told him this was not negotiable. Every loyalist at Bumpy's side was in position. Junie Bird rose, the weight of his .45 felt in the subtle, deadly press against Smooth's back. Willie Fish Jackson produced a sawed-off shotgun, quick and deliberate. Quick Lewis leveled a revolver, steel reflecting the dim lights above, aimed at the bodyguards who dared to breathe wrong. Every weapon, every loyalist, every eye in the room was perfectly synchronized, a silent orchestra of control and intimidation. Smooth's mind raced. His empire, his comfort, his power. It all collapsed in an instant under the gaze of Bumpy Johnson. He looked from the guns to the calm, icy stare of the man who had built Harlem, the man he had betrayed, and finally understood the truth. There was no bargaining, no clever words, no escape. Bumpy Johnson was the law, the judge, and the executioner. And Table 7 was where history would remember the cost of betrayal. The room held its breath. Waiters froze mid-step, plates suspended, glasses poised. Patrons ducked instinctively, sensing danger without knowing why. And Bumpy didn't move. He didn't need to. Every soul in Small's paradise already knew the rules and the consequences for those who dared to break them. Tonight, loyalty and betrayal would collide in a way that no one would forget. Tonight, Marcus Henderson would face the reckoning he had thought he had escaped. And every eye in the room would bear witness. Silence. The kind of silence that presses against the ears, that makes the hum of the jazz trio feel miles away. The restaurant had stopped breathing, frozen in anticipation, as Bumpy Johnson leaned forward slightly, eyes never leaving Marcus "Smooth" Henderson. Smooth's hands shook, his confidence shattered, as he finally realized the truth. This was no negotiation. This was reckoning. Bumpy spoke quietly, deliberately, his voice cutting through the tension like a razor through silk. "Eat," he said, pushing a plate of ribs across the table toward Smooth. A simple command, yet heavy with consequence. The ribs, steaming and glazed, sat like a symbol. Tonight's final indulgence, the last meal of a man who had betrayed his king. Smooth's eyes flickered between the plate and Bumpy, disbelief etched across his face. I'm not hungry," he stammered, voice cracking. "Listen," Bumpy continued, calm, patient, unyielding. "This isn't about hunger. This is about understanding the cost of betrayal." And with that, he slowly reached into his waistband, not for a gun, but for something far more symbolic. A straight razor. The same razor he had carried since 1935. The same razor that had once earned him respect from the most feared men in New York. Tonight, it would serve as justice. Bumpy unfolded the steel slowly, letting the light glint across its edge. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He simply stated a truth that could not be ignored. "You know what the Romans used to do to traitors? They made them eat their last meal. Then, they executed them in public. Let everyone see what happens when you betray your emperor." Smooth swallowed hard, hyperventilating. But Bumpy continued, voice now louder, carrying across the restaurant so every patron could hear. "I am not a Roman emperor, but I am Harlem. And tonight, everyone here will understand what happens when you betray its king." The razor moved slowly, deliberately, across Smooth's left cheek. Not deep, not fatal, but permanent. A scar, a mark etched into history. Blood ran onto the cream-colored suit. A visual reminder of 11 years of betrayal, of stolen wealth, of misplaced trust. Smooth screamed, a sound of shock, fear, and understanding all at once. And Bumpy, calm as ever, leaned back and said quietly, "That's so you remember. Every time you look in a mirror, every time anyone sees you, they'll know what you did." He folded the razor, pocketed it, and leaned back. "You've got 24 hours to leave Harlem. Take whatever you can carry, leave the rest. If I see you after tomorrow night, I won't be this generous." The room exhaled collectively, the tension breaking like a snapped wire, as Bumpy Johnson reminded everyone that power in Harlem was measured not in bullets, but in respect, strategy, and fear earned through calculated action. Table 7 would never be forgotten. Smooth Henderson would carry his shame, his scar, and the memory of the night when the king returned. And the rest of Harlem? They had learned the lesson too. Betrayal has a price. Bumpy Johnson had come back, not just to reclaim what was his, but to remind everyone who truly ran these streets. By sunrise, the city of Harlem was already whispering about what had happened the night before. Marcus "Smooth" Henderson, scarred, humiliated, and broken in spirit, had boarded a bus to Philadelphia. He would never return. The streets that he once walked with arrogance and impunity now remembered him only as the man who betrayed Bumpy Johnson and paid the price. But Smooth was only the beginning. Within 72 hours, the others who had carved up Bumpy's empire quietly disappeared from Harlem, relocating with the understanding that his authority was absolute. No gun battles, no unnecessary bloodshed. Just the quiet, unshakable knowledge that Bumpy Johnson's return meant loyalty or consequence. The message had been delivered. The streets had listened. Even the Italian mob families, who had crept into Harlem during Bumpy's absence, approached him with caution. A captain came to negotiate. The meeting lasted mere minutes. Bumpy's terms were simple, direct, and non-negotiable. Harlem north of 110th Street was his. Every inch of territory, every business, every policy bank reclaimed. The Italians left peacefully, understanding that the cost of defiance outweighed any potential profit. And just like that, Harlem returned to its rightful order. Not through a storm of bullets, not through endless bloodshed, but through respect, fear, and the unshakable reputation of a man who had built an empire on loyalty, strategy, and unflinching authority. The people of Harlem could walk the streets safely again, knowing that the king was back. Bumpy Johnson had reminded them all, power isn't measured by the number of guns you have, but by the respect you command, the loyalty you inspire, and the precision with which you enforce justice. The scars left behind, both literal and symbolic, were proof. Bumpy's empire, his streets, and his rules were restored. And in the quiet moments between jazz notes and the clinking of glasses, the people of Harlem remembered a lesson as old as the city itself. Betray the king, and you will be marked for life. Respect the king, and you live in the shadow of his power, protected and feared in equal measure. Bumpy Johnson's story is not merely one of crime or power. It is a story of principle, loyalty above betrayal. Respect earned, never taken. Intelligence, strategy, and precision define true authority. This is the measure of a king. As Harlem awakens to a new day, the streets tell a story of restoration. Bumpy walks them with the calm authority of a man who has seen everything, endured everything, and returned stronger. He nods to loyalists, checks in on his network, observes the pulse of his neighborhood, every corner, every block, every resident aware that the man who built this empire has come home. Flashbacks ripple through the memory of Harlem. Bumpy in the old days, guiding his men, protecting the community, teaching the rules of respect and trust. The lessons linger in every glance, every handshake, every eye on the streets that once feared chaos and now bows to wisdom. You can lock a man up for 11 years. You can steal his money, his territory. You can try to erase his influence. But you can never take the throne of a king. Bumpy Johnson proved that. And on that night at Small's Paradise, the city witnessed it. His justice, his strategy, his indomitable will. If this story of loyalty, power, and street justice moved you, hit that subscribe button. Share it if you understand that betrayal always comes with a price. And remember, real kings don't need crowns. They need respect.